Marcus woke up early, as he always did. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but the streets of his neighborhood were already alive with noise. Cars honking, kids laughing, and vendors setting up their stalls. He stretched, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, and glanced at his younger siblings curled up on the other side of the small room they all shared. "Time to get moving," he whispered to himself, careful not to wake them. His mom was in the kitchen, sitting by the window with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She looked tired, like she always did these days. Her illness had gotten worse over the past year, leaving Marcus to take care of most things. "I'll bring something back for breakfast," Marcus said softly, grabbing his worn backpack. She nodded weakly, giving him a faint smile. "Be safe, my boy." Outside, the air was cool and crisp. Marcus walked briskly toward the market where he worked odd jobs, helping carry crates, cleaning stalls, or running errands for shopkeepers. It wasn't much, but it kept food on the table. As he passed the park near the river, he paused for a moment. The water sparkled under the morning light, and for a brief second, he let himself imagine a different life. One where he didn't have to worry about money or sickness. Maybe one day, he thought, just maybe. The park was busier than usual that morning. Families strolled along the paths, children played on the swings, and couples sat on benches enjoying the sunshine. Near the riverbank, a young mother struggled to keep her baby's carriage steady as she walked down a narrow dirt path. The edge of the embankment crumbled easily, unstable from recent rainstorms. Marcus noticed them out of the corner of his eye but didn't think much of it until he heard the scream. The carriage wobbled dangerously close to the edge before tipping over completely, tumbling into the fast-moving water below. The mother shrieked, frozen in shock, as bystanders gasped and pointed at the sight. Without thinking, Marcus dropped his backpack and sprinted toward the river. His heart pounded as he leaped off the bank, plunging into the icy current. The force of the water hit him like a wall, nearly knocking him off balance. But he pushed forward, scanning frantically for the carriage. "There!" someone shouted from above, pointing downstream. The carriage bobbed violently in the rushing water, caught between rocks. Inside, the baby cried weakly, his tiny arms flailing. Marcus swam with all his strength, fighting against the pull of the river. Every stroke felt heavier than the last, but he couldn't stop, not when the baby's life depended on him. Finally, he reached the carriage. Grabbing hold of the handle, he yanked it free from the rocks and pulled the crying child out. Holding the baby tightly against his chest, Marcus kicked hard, swimming back toward the shore. By the time he dragged himself onto the bank, he was soaked and shivering, his legs trembling from exhaustion. He handed the baby to the frantic mother, who collapsed to her knees, sobbing with relief. "Thank you," she choked out, clutching her son tightly. "Oh my God, thank you." People gathered around, clapping and cheering, but Marcus didn't stick around. He grabbed his backpack and slipped away, disappearing into the crowd. He hadn't done anything special, he told himself. Anyone would have done the same. But deep down, he knew it wasn't true. Back at his house, Marcus tried to shake off the chill from the river. His clothes were still damp, clinging uncomfortably to his skin, but there was no time to rest. He had promised Mr. Patel at the market he'd help unload crates by noon, and being late would mean losing precious pay. As he changed into dry clothes, his mind replayed the rescue over and over again. The cold water, the terrified cries of the baby, the weight of the carriage pulling him under. It all felt surreal, like it had happened to someone else. Marcus, his little sister, Tia, burst into the room, her eyes wide with excitement. "You're on TV." "What?" Marcus frowned, stepping out to see what she meant. On their small, flickering television screen, a news reporter stood near the riverbank, describing the dramatic rescue. Behind her, blurry footage showed a figure diving into the water and emerging with a baby in his arms. "The brave young man who saved this infant has yet to be identified," the reporter said. In gratitude, the child's father, local millionaire Mr. Harper, is offering a $10 million reward for information leading to the hero's identity. Marcus stared at the screen, his stomach sinking. $10 million? For him? No way, he muttered, shaking his head. They can't be talking about me. But Tia bounced excitedly beside him. That's you, Marcus. You should go claim the money. I didn't do it for money, he snapped, sharper than he intended. Seeing Tia's hurt expression, he softened. Look, I just did what anyone would have done. That's all. Later that evening, whispers spread through the neighborhood. Friends teased Marcus good-naturedly, convinced he was the mysterious rescuer. Even Mr. Patel joked about quitting work if Marcus became rich. But Marcus stayed quiet, brushing off the attention. He didn't want fame or fortune, he just wanted things to go back to normal. Far away, in his lavish penthouse, Mr. Harper sat glued to the news coverage. The image of his son tumbling into the river haunted him. But so did the faceless boy who had saved him. We'll find him, Mr. Harper vowed to himself, picking up the phone to call every contact he had. No matter what it takes. The next few days were strange for Marcus. Everywhere he went, people seemed to look at him differently. Some with curiosity, others with admiration. Even strangers stopped him on the street to ask if he was the boy from the river. Why won't you just come forward? Tia asked one evening as they sat together on the porch. She held a chipped mug of tea in her hands, her big brown eyes filled with hope. Think about how much we could do with that money. Mom wouldn't have to worry anymore. Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples. It's not that simple, he said quietly. What if everyone starts expecting things from me? What if they think I'm only doing it for the reward? But you're not, Tia insisted. You already saved that baby. Everyone knows you're a hero. I'm not a hero, Marcus replied firmly. I'm just me. Inside the house, their mother coughed weakly, reminding them both of the weight pressing down on their family. Medical bills piled up on the kitchen counter, unpaid and growing larger by the day. Marcus glanced at them, guilt twisting in his chest. $10 million would solve everything. Their debts, their struggles, their fears. But it wasn't his choice to make. At the market, whispers followed him like shadows. Mr. Patel patted him on the back and said, If it's true, lad, don't let pride stand in your way. Take the chance while you can. Even kids at school teased him relentlessly. When you get rich, buy us new shoes, one joked, earning laughter from the group. Marcus tried to ignore it all, focusing instead on work and taking care of his family. But late at night, when the house was quiet and sleep wouldn't come, he found himself thinking about the reward and what it could mean. Could he really walk away from an opportunity like this? Or was there another way to use it? Not for himself, but for something bigger? For now, though, he kept his head down and worked harder than ever. Each crate he carried, each errand he ran, reminded him of the life he knew, the life he wasn't ready to leave behind. And yet, deep down, he wondered how long he could stay hidden from the world that suddenly wanted to find him. It was a knock on the door that changed everything. Marcus had just finished helping his mom take her medicine when he heard it. A firm, insistent rap that echoed through their small house. Tia ran to answer it, opening the door to reveal a well-dressed woman holding a notebook and pen. Hi there, the woman said with a polite smile. Is Marcus home? Tia turned to call for him, but Marcus was already stepping forward, his heart pounding. Something about the woman's polished appearance and confident demeanor made him uneasy. I'm Marcus, he said cautiously. The woman extended her hand. I'm Sarah Collins, a journalist. May I come in? Before Marcus could respond, Tia piped up excitedly. He's the one. He's the boy from the river. Tia, Marcus hissed, shooting her a sharp look. Sarah raised an eyebrow, intrigued. So it is you, she said, her voice softening. Mind if we talk? Reluctantly, Marcus nodded, leading her to the tiny living room. His mom sat silently on the couch, watching curiously as Sarah took out her recorder. First off, thank you, Sarah began earnestly. What you did, it was incredible. Do you mind sharing your side of the story? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I don't know what you're talking about. Come on, Marcus, Sarah pressed gently. The whole city's looking for you. Mr. Harper wants to reward you not just with money, but with opportunities. Don't you want to hear him out? Marcus shook his head. I didn't do it for rewards. I just did what anyone would have done. But not everyone did, Sarah countered. That's why people are so moved by your actions. You risked your life for someone else's child. Doesn't that deserve recognition? Marcus looked away, his jaw tightening. Recognition sounded nice in theory, but he knew it wouldn't be that simple. Fame brought attention, and attention meant scrutiny. What would happen when people saw how poor they were? Would they judge him? Expect things from him? I don't need anything, Marcus said finally. Just leave us alone. Sarah hesitated, then leaned closer, lowering her voice. Look, I get it. This is overwhelming. But think about your family. Think about what this could mean for them. Is walking away really worth it? Her words hit a nerve. Marcus glanced at his mom, frail and fragile on the couch, then at Tia, whose wide eyes reflected hope and desperation. I'll think about it, he muttered, standing abruptly to signal the conversation was over. As Sarah left, she gave him a knowing look. You're a good kid, Marcus. Don't let fear stop you from changing your life. Once the door closed, Marcus sank into a chair, running a hand through his hair. Fear? Maybe she was right. Or maybe accepting the reward would change him in ways he wasn't ready for. Either way, he couldn't ignore the fact that hiding wasn't going to make the world forget about him. The next morning, Marcus found himself face to face with the man whose life he had changed forever. Sarah had arranged the meeting at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town, a place far enough from prying eyes but close enough for Marcus to feel uneasy. When Mr. Harper walked in, his presence commanded attention. Dressed in an expensive suit, he carried himself with authority, yet there was a softness in his eyes that surprised Marcus. Thank you for coming, Mr. Harper said, extending a hand. His voice was warm but tinged with emotion. Marcus shook it hesitantly, unsure of what to say. They sat down across from each other, the air thick with unspoken gratitude and uncertainty. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Mr. Harper broke the silence. I owe you everything, he began, his tone sincere. You saved my son's life. I don't think I'll ever be able to repay you, not fully, but I want to try. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I didn't do it for repayment. I know, Mr. Harper replied quickly. And that's exactly why I need to do this. People like you, people who act selflessly without expecting anything in return, are rare. The world needs more of that, and I want to help you keep being that person. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were papers detailing the $10 million reward, along with plans for scholarships, community programs, and mentorship initiatives aimed at helping kids like Marcus. This isn't just about you, Mr. Harper continued. It's about creating opportunities for others. You've already inspired so many. Let me help you take it further. Marcus stared at the folder, his mind racing. He thought about his mom's medical bills, Tia's dreams of becoming a teacher, and his own longing to go to school. But he also thought about the weight of such a gift, and the responsibility that came with it. What if I mess it up? Marcus asked softly, voicing his deepest fear. What if people expect too much from me? Mr. Harper leaned forward, his expression earnest. You won't mess it up. Not because you're perfect, but because you care. That's all anyone can ask for. Marcus took a deep breath, weighing his options. Finally, he nodded slowly. Okay, but only if we use some of the money to help other kids. Kids who don't have anyone looking out for them. Mr. Harper smiled, relief washing over him. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. As they shook hands again, Marcus felt a flicker of hope. A small but powerful spark that maybe, just maybe, this could change things for the better. Not just for him, but for everyone. In the weeks that followed, Marcus's life began to transform in ways he never imagined. With Mr. Harper's guidance, they launched a series of programs aimed at supporting underprivileged youth in the community. Scholarships were created for kids who dreamed of going to college but couldn't afford it. Community centers opened their doors, offering tutoring, mentorship, and safe spaces for children to learn and grow. Marcus played an active role in shaping these initiatives, ensuring they reflected the needs of people like him, kids who often felt invisible or forgotten. He visited schools, sharing his story and encouraging students to believe in themselves. "You're stronger than you think," he told them during one visit. "Even when things seem impossible, don't give up. One small act can change everything." Mr. Harper watched proudly as Marcus stepped into this new role, seeing glimpses of leadership and compassion that reminded him of himself at a younger age, or rather, who he wished he'd been. Their bond deepened over time. They spent hours discussing ideas, challenges, and dreams. Marcus learned about running businesses responsibly, while Mr. Harper rediscovered the value of humility and connection. One evening, after a long day of meetings, they found themselves sitting on a park bench near the river where it all began. The sun was setting, casting golden hues across the water. "I never thought I'd meet someone like you," Mr. Harper admitted, breaking the silence. "You've taught me so much about courage, selflessness, and what really matters." Marcus smiled faintly. "And you've given me a chance to do something meaningful, something bigger than myself." They sat there quietly for a while, watching the river flow steadily onward. In that moment, neither felt the gap between their worlds. They were simply two people united by gratitude and purpose. For Marcus, it wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about proving that kindness could ripple outward, touching lives far beyond his own. And for Mr. Harper, it was about learning to slow down and cherish the moments and the people that truly mattered. A year later, Marcus stood at the front of a crowded auditorium, his heart pounding as hundreds of people clapped and cheered. The community center behind him bore a plaque with his name on it, a place dedicated to helping kids like him chase their dreams. He adjusted the microphone nervously, glancing at the faces in the audience. There was Tia, beaming with pride, his mom, sitting tall despite her frailty, and Mr. Harper, smiling warmly from the front row. "I didn't think I was special," Marcus began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I still don't. What I did that day, anyone could have done it. All I wanted was to help someone who needed it." The crowd listened intently as he spoke about his journey, the struggles, the doubts, and the moments of hope that kept him going. "But here's what I've learned," he continued. "Being a hero isn't about fame or money. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard. It's about believing in yourself and others, no matter where you come from." Applause erupted again, echoing through the room. As Marcus stepped back, Mr. Harper joined him on stage, placing a hand on his shoulder. "This young man has changed not only my life but also the lives of countless others," Mr. Harper said, his voice thick with gratitude. "Let's make sure his legacy continues." After the ceremony, Marcus walked along the riverbank, reflecting on how far he'd come. His dream of becoming a doctor was now within reach, thanks to scholarships funded by the very programs he helped create. More importantly, he'd inspired others to believe in themselves, to see that their actions, no matter how small, could make a difference. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Marcus smiled softly. Life wasn't perfect, but it was full of possibilities. And for the first time, he felt ready to embrace them, all because he'd chosen to jump into the river that day.